So what about UKCAT? How did you guys prepare for that?
So the thing about UKCAT is you have to bear in mind the structure of the exam, and you have to hone your revision to the 4 main sections. Obviously, there's the 5th section, the SJ2.
Yeah.
But that's a bit more intuitive. You have to nail down some specific skills for the other sections. So starting off with verbal reasoning, a bit like the BMAT section 1, where you have some critical thinking questions, where you have paragraphs and you have to filter through. Similar skills are there for verbal reasoning, but not just knowing that that's the general idea of what you have to do. You have to know the question types. So some of them are true, false, can't tell. Some of them have sort of variants on more free-form sort of questions. So if you nail down the technique for things like the true, false, can't tell questions, you can free up some time for the more difficult questions where you have perhaps more options, or you have to read longer answers rather than just true, false, and can't tell. So a good technique is doing as many practice questions as you can expose yourself to, and making sure that you've gone through all of the practice questions that are available on the website.
Yeah. Because it is an online exam, I think it's useful to practice on a computer or a laptop of some sort, so you can get used to the fact that it's online. So I did that.
So there are
lots of practice.
Yeah, there are lots of books out there. So if it's in written format, you might think you're getting a lot of practice, but you know, a lot of the skill, sadly, obviously, but you know, a lot of the skill will be in how deft you are with your computer and your mouse and your calculator.
Yeah.
Fun thing about the calculator in the quantitative reasoning section, the more practice you do, the more you feel that you won't actually have to reach for the calculator, because you realise that I can round down because all the 5 answers are quite spaced out. So if I round up or round down and bear that in mind, I'm more likely to be close to one answer than the other.
And you also save time.
Yeah, because obviously there is the trick that you can turn on the number lock and use the keypad on a keyboard, and that will be at your test centre by and large. I'm pretty sure that that's a universal thing, although you can check. That's one skill, so whenever you do need to bring it out, when you notice that all the options are quite close together, that's when you probably need to do so. Or if the phrasing of the question says exactly, then that's something that you might want to bear in mind. So did you guys come up with any skills for doing the abstract reasoning section? Because some people struggle with that a lot.
Yeah, I think so. After I did many questions, I made this little list of common patterns that I saw.
Yeah.
So I think that helped me because some do repeat and some are very elaborate. So, you know, just writing them down helps you think in that manner. So it prepares you for other complicated questions like that.
Yeah, and you you begin to see the pattern naturally with a lot of practice. And yeah, I made sure I knew, at the back of my mind, I always thought of a few certain patterns, like perhaps the shape or the colour, or the number of objects or the angle, just different ways. You will yourself figure out how to work out the pattern. And I think the key to that is really just keep on practicing, and spend majority of your time per question looking at the pattern and finding, looking at the shapes or whatever, and then finding the pattern, because once you've got the pattern, the questions that follow from that, you will do so quickly. So don't be afraid of spending more time on that.
And if you have a look at the practice questions that are available online, you'll notice that although in some practice books and things like that, they're quite complex, multi-layered, sort of 3-4 different things you have to bear in mind at once. In the real thing, a lot of people find that in actuality it's more 1 or 2 key things. So if you're seeing patterns everywhere, which you will be by the end of your revision period, you should probably bear in mind that it's not going to be massively difficult in the real exam. They do want to get people who get the correct answer, so just bear that in mind. Sometimes it will just be that there's a white circle in the corner every time, and that's all there is to it. So
I think that goes for all the sections. Not everything will be very confusing. There will be those few, but don't be afraid to state the obvious or find the obvious.
Okay, when it comes to the situational judgment test, a lot of people overlook it, a lot of people don't revise enough.
Yeah.
The funny thing is actually getting a feel for the different options, which are sort of, it goes from I think this is a really good thing to do to I think this is a terrible thing to do. Knowing how the examiner's minds work tends to take some practice. That you have to obviously remember some key principles in mind, like you can't breach confidentiality, you can't do something that will heighten the situation rather than lead to resolution.
Yeah, I read the GMC Guidelines.
Yeah.
I would say read that, highlight some key points. I think one of the very early pages on of it is basically everything that you need to know. Just learn those few points, and then that's exactly what the examiner is looking for. So if you know that and you stick by that, then you should be fine.
Yeah. There's a strong common sense element to it,
Yeah.
which is why people do, tend to put it on the back seat when it comes to revision. I think once you've got a feel for what the examiner's going for, why they put, not fully appropriate but partially appropriate, at that point, I think it's probably a good time to stop and focus on the other sections.
Yeah.
So, on that topic, how long did you guys spend preparing, would you say? On the scale of weeks or?
I would say I started preparing after I finished like my AS exams, so the exams in the summer. And then I had my exam mid-August. So I'd say proper revision was probably just over a month, I'd like to say.
But that's sort of on and off rather than a dedicated period.
Yeah. I think UKCAT's one of the things where it's actually very hard to revise for like many hours in a day. It is difficult, and it's not one of those things where you can do that. It's more of a skill that you need to master. So I think it's better to do a little bit every day for a long period of time rather than trying to cram it in 2 weeks, because I don't think that's kind of how it'll work, unless you're someone to be very good at these kind of questions.
Sure. And when did you guys think about booking during the summer? Because obviously you can pick whatever date you want to. Obviously, the earlier you get in, the more likely you'll get the date that you want, because obviously there are limited numbers at each test centre. When did you guys pick it? Did you pick it to avoid holidays? Did you pick it to be, closer to the start of school or further away from it? What was your strategy with picking a time?
Have saving enough time in the summer holidays for me to actually prepare, because I also had work experience and stuff in July, so I needed to think about that. But also for me, I wanted it to be before results day. I just didn't want, say if results day can go either way.
Yeah.
And I didn't want it to ever psychologically affect me. Might not be a reason which everyone goes by, but for me, I made sure it was before results day, but still leaving me sufficient time after my work experience and stuff.
Now you can, if you like, take the test in September, so after you go back to school, but generally people say, that's to be avoided because you have your schoolwork to worry about as well.
And personal statement. And
so since you can defer the date at which you do your UKCAT, it's best to get in early, I should think.
Yeah.
Pick a date, July, August, whenever's comfortable for you, and then, see where you are from there.
And try to book as soon as you can, because then you have a date to work towards. And yeah.